I thought I knew Asia. After years of living in Bangkok and Bali, I felt like I had seen it all. The bustling chaos of Thailand where tradition blends seamlessly with modern tourism, and the serene beauty of Bali, a paradise of spirituality, yoga, and endless sunsets. Those places shaped my understanding of what Asia was supposed to be. But then, I arrived in the Philippines. And suddenly, everything I thought I understood was challenged. The Philippines was not just another destination. It was raw, unpredictable, and deeply human in a way I had never experienced before. It wasn't just about beaches or cities. It was about people, resilience, joy, and culture that refuses to be boxed in. In this journey, I'll share how the Philippines surprised me, overwhelmed me, and ultimately changed the way I see Asia forever. From moments of culture shock to unexpected discoveries. This is the story of how the Philippines opened my eyes in ways Thailand and Bali never could. Life in Bangkok. The organized chaos Bangkok is a city that never truly sleeps. Every morning, the streets are already buzzing before sunrise. Monks in saffron robes collecting alms. Food vendors preparing steaming bowls of noodles, and an endless stream of motorbikes weaving through impossible traffic. At first, the chaos seems overwhelming. The traffic jams test your patience, the humid air presses against your skin, and the sheer number of people can feel suffocating. But slowly, I began to realize that there's a rhythm to this madness. Street food stalls became my second home. Pad Thai, mango sticky rice, grilled satay, all prepared with such speed and precision it felt like an art form. Then, as night fell, Bangkok transformed into something else entirely. Neon lights, rooftop bars, night markets, and the infamous nightlife districts reminded me that this city thrives on energy and constant motion. And yet, amid all of this modern noise, you would find quiet temples tucked away, serene golden Buddhas, the scent of incense drifting into the air, and people bowing in silent devotion. Bangkok taught me survival. It taught me that discipline and adaptability are the keys to thriving in a fast-paced world. It was organized chaos, messy on the outside, but underneath it all, an unshakable structure that kept the city moving. Paradise with layers. After Bangkok's intensity, Bali felt like an escape. The island had an energy of its own, one that was calmer, slower, and deeply spiritual. Mornings often began with yoga by the beach or watching offerings being placed outside homes and temples, flowers, rice, and incense laid carefully to honor the gods. The sunsets seemed almost unreal, painting the sky with shades of pink and orange as surfers rode the last waves of the day. To the outside world, Bali is marketed as paradise. Western travelers arrive expecting infinity pools, rice terraces, and a carefree lifestyle. And yes, those things exist. But beneath the surface, I found a Bali that was much more profound. The Balinese live with rituals woven into every moment, daily offerings, temple ceremonies, and community festivals that remind you life here is more about connection than consumption. Bali taught me simplicity. It taught me to slow down, to live in the present moment, and to find meaning beyond material success. Where Bangkok drilled me into resilience, Bali invited me into reflection. The confidence of experience. After living in both Bangkok and Bali, I grew confident, perhaps even arrogant, in my belief that I understood Asia. I had navigated Bangkok's relentless pace and embraced Bali's spiritual calm. I had adapted to two extremes, the structured chaos of a massive city and the slow, meditative rhythm of an island. What else could possibly surprise me? I felt prepared for anything. Cultural shock? I thought I had outgrown it. Language barriers? I believed I could handle them with gestures and patience. I carried myself with the mindset of a seasoned traveler, someone who had seen enough of Asia to know what to expect. But then, I arrived in the Philippines, and that's when everything I thought I knew began to unravel. First landing in Manila. The unexpected energy stepping off the plane in Manila was like stepping into a completely different frequency of life. From the moment I left the airport, I was struck by the noise, the laughter, the music spilling from jeepneys, and the chaotic dance of taxis, buses, and motorcycles all trying to move at once. Manila didn't just feel alive, it felt unpredictable. The city was a whirlwind of contradictions. On one side of the road stood gleaming skyscrapers and massive shopping malls, while just a few blocks away, narrow alleys were filled with food stalls, children playing barefoot, and families living with so little, yet carrying so much joy. It was messy and beautiful at the same time. But the biggest shock wasn't the traffic or the heat, it was the people. In Bangkok, I had learned to respect politeness and reserved smiles. In Bali, I had admired spirituality and community. But in Manila, I was met with something else: openness. Strangers talked to me as though I was already a friend. Taxi drivers cracked jokes, street vendors asked me about my life, and everywhere I turned, there was music, laughter, and warmth. Hospitality redefined. The Filipino smile, the phrase Filipino hospitality, isn't just a cliche, it's a lived reality. I experienced it almost immediately. When I got lost in Manila, a stranger didn't just give me directions. They walked me halfway to my destination to make sure I didn't miss it. At a small eatery, the owner gave me extra rice with a smile, saying, "You look hungry, kuya." On jeepneys, passengers shuffled over to make room, even if it meant sitting shoulder to shoulder in a cramped space. It was a different kind of kindness, less formal than Thai politeness, more spontaneous than Balinese warmth. It wasn't just about being nice. It was about genuinely wanting you to feel welcome. In those first few days, I realized that in the Philippines, people don't treat you as a tourist, they treat you as a human being. And that changes everything. The language surprise, another shock, hit me quickly. Almost everyone spoke English. From taxi drivers to street food vendors, conversations flowed easily. For the first time in Asia, I felt like I could truly connect with people without struggling over words or gestures. Stories, jokes, and personal conversations suddenly became possible in a way that they never quite were in Bangkok or Bali. This fluency broke barriers instantly. It made me feel less like an outsider and more like I belonged, even if temporarily. In Bangkok, I often relied on smiles and pointing. In Bali, I picked up bits of Baisa, but deep conversations remained rare. In the Philippines, though, I could sit with strangers and, within minutes, laughing, debating, and sharing personal stories. It was liberating, and it was only the beginning of how the Philippines would rewrite my understanding of Asia. The karaoke nation, music in the blood. It didn't take long for me to realize that music runs in the veins of the Philippines. Karaoke isn't just a weekend activity, it's practically a national sport. I remember walking down a street in Manila and hearing voices pouring out of open windows, neighbors passing around microphones like it was the most natural thing in the world. In bars, it didn't matter whether you were a trained singer or someone who could barely carry a tune. Everyone sang with confidence, heart, and joy. What struck me was how music was never about performance. It was about connection. Families sang together at home, workers sang during breaks, and even in the midst of hardship, a song was always ready on someone's lips. Unlike in Bangkok or Bali, where music felt more like background ambience, in the Philippines, music was identity itself, a unifying thread that reminded me that joy doesn't come from perfection, but from expression. Faith, festivals, and family. The deeper I traveled, the more I understood that faith, festivals, and family are the pillars of Filipino life. Catholicism is woven into nearly every corner of society. Churches aren't just places of worship, they're community centers, gathering spaces, and even historical landmarks. On Sundays, entire families attend Mass together, children dressed neatly, grandparents holding rosaries, parents guiding their little ones through prayers. And then there are the fiestas, explosions of color, parades, and food that bring towns to life. Each one is unique, honoring saints or local traditions. But the common thread is always the same: family and community. Compared to Buddhist Thailand, where temples radiate serenity, or Hindu Bali, where spirituality is expressed through daily offerings, the Philippines radiates faith through togetherness. Faith here is not just personal. It is lived out in family ties, community support, and celebrations that blend the sacred with the joyful. Beyond the islands, an archipelago of contrasts, it wasn't until I began traveling outside Manila that I fully grasped the scale of the Philippines. Over 7,000 islands, each with its own identity. I quickly realized that the Philippines isn't one culture, but a mosaic of many. Cebu had its cosmopolitan vibe, a city that thrived with both history and modernity. Palawan was pure nature, crystal clear lagoons and towering limestone cliffs that seemed untouched by time. And then there was Mindanao, rich with its own traditions and stories, carrying a different rhythm entirely. Each island revealed a new version of the Philippines, and I began to understand that this country cannot be simplified. Where Thailand and Bali felt like singular experiences, the Philippines was an entire world waiting to be explored. The streets of Manila versus the beaches of Palawan. I still remember the moment the contrast hit me hardest. One week, I was in Manila, stuck in traffic as jeepneys and motorcycles wove chaotically through packed streets. The next week, I was in Palawan, standing barefoot on a quiet beach, staring at water so clear I could see fish swimming by my feet. That first island hopping trip in Palawan was transformative. Hidden lagoons, secret beaches, and islands that felt like they had been carved out of a dream. I couldn't reconcile how one country could contain both extremes: chaotic cities bursting with energy and untouched islands that whispered silence. It was then I realized the Philippines wasn't just one version of Asia. It was many Asias in one place. Resilience in hardship. The Philippines is no stranger to hardship. Typhoons, floods, and poverty are realities that many communities face. Yet, what stunned me was not the challenges themselves, but how people responded to them. Even in places where homes were fragile and resources scarce, I heard laughter. Even in the face of loss, people carried a spirit of hope. I once met a tricycle driver whose house had been damaged by a storm. Instead of bitterness, he told me, "Life is hard, but at least we can still smile." That moment stayed with me. Thailand and Bali had shown me beauty and culture, but the Philippines showed me resilience, the ability to choose joy despite hardship. It was a lesson far greater than any I had expected. The jeepney ride, a cultural icon. No experience defines the Philippines quite like the jeepney. My first ride was both confusing and exhilarating. Painted with vibrant colors, religious quotes, and pop culture art, these vehicles are more than transport. They're moving stories. Passengers sit close, passing coins hand to hand to the driver, and everyone somehow knows the unspoken rules of this shared dance. The jeepney taught me that transportation here isn't just about getting from point A to point B. It's about community. You're never alone in a jeepney. You're part of a temporary family, bound by proximity and trust. This sense of shared space and ingenuity, born from repurposed U.S. military vehicles, reflects the Filipino ability to take hardship and turn it into something vibrant, functional, and uniquely their own. Food surprises. From Jollibee to Ballad, of course, no journey is complete without food. And in the Philippines, food is both comfort and culture. The first surprise was Jollibee, a fast food chain that isn't just popular, but beloved. Entire families gather there, children in birthday hats, adults digging into fried chicken and spaghetti with sweet sauce. Jollibee isn't about the food alone, it's about pride and joy. Then came the street food adventures. Ballad, the infamous fertilized duck egg, was a test of courage. I saw a grilled chicken intestines, was smoky and flavorful. Halo Halo, a rainbow mix of shaved ice, beans, fruit, and milk, was pure happiness in a glass. Compared to Thai street food spiciness or Bali's tropical flavors, Filipino food was about experimentation, surprise, and heart. Every dish told a story, every bite carried history. A different pace of time. Then there was something called Filipino time. At first, it frustrated me. Plans never seemed to start on time. Schedules were more like suggestions than commitments. Coming from Bangkok's punctual hustle and Bali's structured rituals, this felt chaotic. But eventually, I learned that Filipino time wasn't about laziness. It was about flexibility. It was about valuing people and moments over strict schedules. It taught me that sometimes, slowing down is exactly what life needs. Time here wasn't wasted. It was lived. The emotional connection, perhaps the most profound difference, was the emotional connection I felt in the Philippines. In Bangkok, relationships felt polite but distant. In Bali, people welcomed me warmly, but there was still a quiet reserve. In the Philippines, however, friendships formed almost instantly. Neighbors invited me to meals. Strangers opened their homes. Conversations went from casual to personal in minutes. I didn't feel like an outsider observing culture. I felt like a participant in it. This deep sense of belonging was something I had never experienced elsewhere in Asia. The islands that change you. Traveling to islands like Siargao and Boracay was more than a holiday. It was transformative. In Siargao, surfers chased waves while locals gathered for sunsets that painted the sky. In Boracay, the nights came alive with music and dancing, yet mornings began with the calm of gentle tides. But beyond the beauty, it was the people who left the mark. Fishermen who offered fresh catch, children who played freely along the shore, and communities that lived simply but fully. These islands didn't just offer scenery, they changed the way I understood happiness. Lessons Asia couldn't teach, until the Philippines. Bangkok has taught me resilience in structure and speed. Bali has taught me spirituality and reflection. But the Philippines? It taught me something deeper, humanity. It showed me joy in hardship, connection in diversity, and resilience in ways that textbooks or travel guides could never capture. This was the lesson I didn't know I needed. That true understanding of a place comes not from its monuments or landscapes, but from the people who carry its spirit. Breaking the stereotypes. Before I arrived, I had heard the stereotypes: poverty, danger, instability. Western media often painted the Philippines as a country to be cautious about. But my personal encounters shattered those images. Instead of fear, I found kindness. Instead of hostility, I found generosity. Instead of despair, I found laughter. The reality was far richer than the stereotypes could ever convey. The Philippines was not a place to avoid, it was a place to embrace. Why the Philippines feels like home. The more time I spent here, the more I realized why people fall in love with the Philippines. It wasn't just the beaches, food, or festivals. It was the balance between chaos and comfort. Somehow, even when things were unpredictable, there was a sense of safety. Even when the cities were loud, there was warmth. I began to feel less like a visitor and more like part of the community. And that feeling of belonging, of being accepted as family, was something I hadn't found in Bangkok or Bali. Final reflection: the Asia I didn't know. Looking back, I realize now that the Philippines was the missing piece of my Asian journey. Bangkok gave me structure. Bali gave me spirituality. But the Philippines gave me life. The raw, unpredictable, deeply human experience that tied everything together. The Philippines is not just a country, it is an emotion. A blend of East and West, tradition and modernity, joy and struggle. It is the Asia I didn't know I was searching for. I had lived in Bangkok and Bali, but it wasn't until I arrived in the Philippines that Asia finally felt alive to me.